08:34 local time, the Philippine Navy frigate BRP Miguel Malvar is on a sovereignty patrol 75 nautical miles west of Palawan. Unknown to the Filipino captain, a Chinese Type 056A corvette has been closing for 40 minutes, and the radar on the Chinese ship is about to make the biggest mistake of its career. Inside Malvar's Combat Information Center, the radar warning receiver screams a tone every Filipino sailor has trained for but never heard. A contact paints the Malvar's tactical display 18 nautical miles southeast, closing at 16 knots. Optics resolve the silhouette against the haze. Twin masts, low freeboard, the boxy lines of a Type 056A corvette of the People's Liberation Army Navy. The Filipino captain orders general quarters, and the 1MC, the shipwide intercom every sailor on every Navy deck has heard since World War II, pipes general quarters, through every compartment as watertight doors slam shut. The tactical action officer, the man on watch with the legal authority to fire, calls weapons free for self-defense. The 76mm cycles to ready, and sonar shifts from passive to active, pinging instead of listening, shouting into the dark instead of waiting to hear someone breathe. Every man in the CIC has run this drill in exercises, not one of them for real. Weapons go from cold to ready in under 3 minutes, and now the only question is whether the corvette closing in on them is bluffing or actually about to fire. Aboard the Chinese corvette, the captain has standing orders that came down months ago. Probe the Filipino response, harass the patrol pattern, and push the edge of an incident without crossing it. The doctrine has a name in their planning rooms, and it's the same one bullies have used since the playground. It only works on kids too small to swing back. Beijing forgot to check who Manila's friends are. 40 seconds of decision space is about to open up on Malvar's bridge. That's the distance from downtown Dallas to Fort Worth in YJ-83 flight time, and he has to decide whether to shoot before that timer runs out. The corvette's bow swings 10 degrees, and the fire control director above her bridge snaps onto a new bearing. Inside Malvar's Combat Information Center, the electronic warfare suite screams a tone that snaps every head in the compartment around. The bearing slams across the threat display half a second later, and the fire control board erupts with automatic responses cascading down the line. The 76mm Auto Malera forward gun is tracking. The MICA cells are warm, and the Sea Star launchers are slewed and ready. 8 anti-ship missiles, 16 surface-to-air missiles, and a 76mm cannon all sit waiting on the call of one man on the bridge. If the Chinese wanted to know what a real shooting war with even a mid-tier U.S. ally feels like, then he's about 10 seconds from finding out. On Malvar's bridge, the captain stomps to the centerline window and barks, "Hard right, rudder, all ahead full," unmasking the Sea Star launchers on the starboard quarter and bringing every weapon system on the ship to bear on a single threat axis. The helmsman hauls the wheel over and the frigate heels into the turn, decks tilting 12 degrees as twin diesels spool up to 30 knots. Topside, the MICA cell weather covers retract on hydraulic motors with a sound like 16 garage doors opening at once. The countermeasures officer preloads chaff binders for the threat azimuth. Every pair of hands on the ship is now doing exactly what it was trained to do. The 76mm forward gun keeps tracking what it is, the Auto Malera 76mm Super Rapid, an Italian-built naval cannon weighing 7.5 tons, throwing 6.4 kilogram shells out to about 10 nautical miles, 85 rounds a minute, radar-guided, switchable between anti-ship, anti-air, and anti-missile roles. The Auto Malera is the gun the rest of NATO bought because it does everything well and never asks for a raise. What just lit up Malvar's threat board has a name: Type 347G Fire Control Radar, the Cassegrain antenna mounted aft of the corvette's bridge. Search radar sweeps everything in range to find contacts. Fire Control Radar concentrates beam power on one specific target, generating the precision a gun or missile needs to actually hit. Right now, that beam is locked on Malvar. Search Radar is a flashlight scanning a parking lot, while Fire Control Radar is a laser sight on a rifle. The flashlight asks, "What's out there?" The laser sight asks, "What am I about to put a hole through?" Locking Fire Control Radar on another warship is the electromagnetic equivalent of cocking the hammer on a loaded gun and pointing it at someone's chest, and the next step on the doctrinal ladder is launching. The Filipino captain's eyes track the weapons board. 16 cells warm, the Sea Star slewed, the 76mm tracking the corvette's superstructure. The firing key sits 2 clicks away from a 4-minute time of flight to the corvette's bridge windows. He's got the legal authority, the tactical justification, and the means. On Malvar's foredeck, 16 square hatches sit forward of the bridge. That's her vertical launching system, the VLS. It's the first VLS ever fielded by the Philippine Navy. Each cell holds one MBDA VL MICA, a French-built short-range surface-to-air missile that can also drop a surface ship if it has to. Every cell can shoot in any direction without the ship having to turn, and right now 16 of them are warm. Forward of that, the Sea Star launchers carry the main event. The Sea Star you see here is South Korea's homegrown anti-ship cruise missile. About 1,500 pounds of missile, a 350-pound warhead, sea skimming to inside 10 meters off the wave tops, range of around 90 nautical miles, roughly LA to San Diego. Active radar in terminal seconds, shouting into the darkness and listening for the echo. The corvette Sea Whiz was built for older missiles. The Sea Star is not an older missile. Older missile launchers had to be aimed like a tank turret, but VLS is more like 16 golf balls on tees, every one of them ready to roll the second someone yells, "For!" But that's not the headline. What's about to ruin the ship's morning is everything else the Malvar carries. At 4,000 yards, the Filipinos have every justification to put a MICA through the corvette's superstructure inside the next 10 seconds. He doesn't pull the trigger. He keys the radio instead, and the corvette on the other end is about to find out why. That decision is going to cost his Navy more than firing back ever could. Somewhere at Indo-Pacific Command, a watch officer just spilled his coffee because the Filipinos didn't shoot. They played it perfectly, and every American asset in the Western Pacific is about to make sure China knows what that costs. What the Chinese ship is doing has a name in Planned Gray Zone Doctrine. Make the other guy shoot first. If Malvar fires, the corvette burning becomes righteous Chinese self-defense, and tomorrow's headlines blame the Filipinos for starting it. It's the equivalent of your neighbor's kid poking you in the chest on your own lawn, hoping you'll shove him so his dad can call the cops on you. The second you react, you're the bad guy. This wasn't a misunderstanding. Beijing was testing whether Manila's most capable frigate would shoot when illuminated. The test is still running. Aboard the corvette, the Chinese hold the lock for 30 more seconds, gambling on Filipino restraint rather than on Malvar's inability to respond. He's also betting, though he doesn't know it, on whether the Americans are watching closely enough to care. PLA Navy vessel bearing 265. This is Philippine Navy warship Foxtrot Golf 6. You are illuminating my ship with fire control radar. Cease this unprofessional and dangerous behavior immediately. Acknowledge. Standard procedure, calm voice. The kind of calm that doesn't come from being relaxed. It comes from being ready. Somewhere on the corvette's bridge, a junior officer is probably translating the radio challenge. The captain is waiting for the Filipinos to crack. It doesn't, and it sounds like a man reading a grocery list to his wife over the phone while he's already in the checkout line. Zero emotion. Maximum, "I've done this before." This is what a Navy with 75 years of American training under its belt sounds like. The Chinese are about to find out he didn't pick a target, he picked a tripwire. The Type 347G holds for 20 more seconds, then 30. The Filipinos repeat the challenge once and chooses not to repeat it twice. What the Chinese captain doesn't know is that the Filipino on the radio isn't the only one listening to him this morning. 2 other ears have been on the net for the last 40 minutes, and both wear American flags on the shoulder. At 0837, the Type 347G stows and the Chinese corvette breaks off, opening distance to 10,000 yards while Malvar's CIC catches every detail of the lock. 40 seconds of fire control radar captured in full, and not just by the Filipinos. 180 nautical miles east of Sabina Shoal, at 28,000 feet, an electronic intelligence operator screen lights up the moment the corvette's Type 347G transmits its first pulse. Every detail of the emission goes into the record: frequency, pulse repetition, the unique fingerprint of that radar set, time stamped to the millisecond. The operator hits encrypt, and a data packet routes through satellite to a server in Hawaii loyal to a treaty Manila signed 74 years ago. If you look here at the aircraft that just caught all of that, that's a U.S. Navy P-8A Poseidon from Patrol Squadron 4, the unit that owns the South China Sea. The P-8 is the Navy's flying ear over the Pacific. a Boeing 737 stuffed with sensors that's been cataloging every radar emission within hundreds of miles since dawn. The aircraft carries an AN/APY-10 multi-code radar, an AN/ALQ-240 electronic support measure suite, and a full ELINT package. The package logs the fingerprint of every emitter in range, and the second the Type 347G transmits, that emission becomes evidence in a folder China will never see and never get back. Imagine a recording studio at 28,000 feet. Except instead of microphones, it has antennas listening for the unique fingerprint of every military radar on Earth. And today, it just got a fresh recording. Within minutes, Indo-Pacific Command has the receipts on a Chinese warship locking weapons on a Treaty Allies public vessel inside her own EEZ, encrypted to a level no Chinese embassy will ever crack. That's the sound of a 74-year-old treaty doing exactly what it was built to do. The Chinese Navy got the answer they wanted from the corvette captain, but they didn't get the answer they thought they got from everyone else. And somewhere 400 feet under the South China Sea, something the corvette will never see, never hear, and never live to report is already turning toward her. 40 nautical miles southeast of Sabina Shoal, about the distance from Manhattan to Princeton, the USS Minnesota is on day 11 of a routine patrol, 400 feet beneath the South China Sea. 7,900 tons of Virginia-class fast attack with a crew of 135, a $3.6 billion price tag, and an acoustic signature so quiet she registers below ambient ocean noise at patrol speed. China is decades from yielding anything in this same weight class, and tonight she's about to demonstrate exactly why the Pacific is still an American lake. At 0900, she ascends to periscope depth, and the radio room printer chatters to life a moment later. The CO and XO crack the flash precedence traffic in under 30 seconds. Plan type 056A Corvette. Vicinity Sabina Shoal. Designated objective contact, conduct approach to attack profile. That message rode in on a wire antenna trailing behind Minnesota, and that's how the world reaches a submarine 400 feet down. Subs don't get text messages, and they don't have cell coverage at depth. Command sends them long-wave radio on very low frequency or extremely low frequency that punches through hundreds of feet of salt water to a floating wire trailing behind the boat. The Navy pre-stations boats in patrol boxes the size of small countries, and Task Force 74 in Yokosuka whispers to whichever sub is closest. On a good day, that submarine is on top of its target inside of an hour, and today is a good day. It's like calling Uber, except the Uber is a $3.6 billion nuclear submarine and the driver shows up at 22 knots from 60 miles away to handle a corvette worth less than 3% of his ride. Minnesota takes turns for 22 knots, deep, on intercept geometry. The patrol that started as routine has become a hunt. She runs at 400 feet, threading the layer depth where the temperature gradients turn ocean into a maze of acoustic mirrors, and her towed array deploys behind her. Inside a sonar shack, cold, low-lit, headphones pressed tight against the ear, the bearing line forms on the waterfall display, and within seconds it solidifies into a single contact with a clear acoustic identity. A 1,500-ton diesel-electric vessel making turns for 16 knots, signature consistent with a Type 056A Corvette, matching the surveillance track to within 100 yards. One of the Minnesota's sonar techs identifies the contact by class inside 3 minutes. He mutters into his headset that finding her is like trying to find the one kid in a hide-and-seek game who can't stop giggling. The chief next to him doesn't laugh. Laughing while someone builds a firing solution is a good way to spend the next deployment buffing the deck. What just found that corvette is 2 arrays working as one. The bulbous nose at the front of the Minnesota is the large aperture bow array. Trailing several thousand feet behind her is the towed array. The AN/BQQ-10 you see here is the Virginia's primary sensor suite. 4 separate arrays feeding one combined picture. The bow array does close-in work. 2 flank arrays handle medium-range bearings, and the towed array provides the longest passive ear of any submarine afloat. The system can detect the diesel-electric surface contact well beyond 50 nautical miles in clean water, and the corvette is a diesel-electric in clean water. Submarines don't see. They listen so well they don't need to. The ocean is loud, and every ship broadcasts a unique acoustic signature whether the captain knows it or not. Right now, the corvette is broadcasting hers like a brass band marching through a library, and the Minnesota is the librarian. The Minnesota slides west under the layer depth, threading the thermocline like a hand under a blanket. The officer of the deck calls depth changes by the foot: 420, 430, back to 400. Riding the temperature gradient that bends the Corvette's sonar pings up and away from her hull. 20 minutes in, the Corvette pings active. A single sharp sound that washes through the Minnesota's hull like rain on a tin roof. The sonar shack tenses. The Chief's hand goes flat on the console. The signal returns to the Corvette as a smear off the layer above the Minnesota. Biological. False return. The kind of ghost diesel boats hunt all day in the South China Sea and never catch. The Corvette's sonar operator logs it and pings again to verify. The OOD has a choice: go deeper and lose the firing solution, or hold and bet that the layer holds. He holds. The second return comes back the same way: bent, scattered, classified as biological. The Corvette's operator secures active and goes back to passive listening, satisfied that he's chasing schools of tuna. He's not. He's standing on top of 7,000 tons of nuclear submarine, and his sonar just told him it was a fish. The Minnesota tucks into the Corvette's baffles, the acoustic blind spot directly astern where the prop wash drowns out everything behind her, and locks station at 8,000 yards, about the length of 25 football fields. A man on the Corvette's deck looking down at the right moment might see a shadow. He doesn't look down. If you look here at the hull-mounted sonar dome on the Corvette's bow, that's an older MGK 335 set designed for finding diesel-electric submarines in shallow water, a bow array for short range and a towed sonar for slightly longer. Neither was designed for a nuclear submarine that produces less radiated noise at patrol speed than the ambient ocean around her. The Corvette's sonar is, in plain terms, a museum piece. It's fishing for great white with a kid's tackle box. It's like asking a guy with reading glasses to spot a sniper in a forest at night. He'd need different eyes, different light, and probably a different career. At 8,000 yards, the Minnesota is well inside firing parameters. The Corvette is technically sunk for the last 7 minutes and entirely unaware of it. Tube 2 floods. Inside the Minnesota's control room, the fire control party hammers out the firing solution within seconds. They snap bearing, range, course, and speed into the ANBYG-1 combat system in under a minute. The ANBYG-1 is the Virginia's brainstem, the open architecture fire control suite that takes raw acoustics, target motion, and weapon parameters and spits out a firing solution faster than the man on the trigger can blink. The numbers ripple in real time as the Corvette maneuvers above. The outer door stays shut, a simulated run, not a live shot, the boat proving that it could fire, not that it will. Loaded in Tube 2, a Mark 48 advanced capability heavyweight torpedo, the Navy's go-to weapon for hunting both ships and other submarines. The launching boat rides it on a wire through mid-course, and in the last few seconds, the torpedo snaps to its own active and passive sonar and hunts the target itself. It packs a 650-pound high-explosive warhead, runs at 55 knots, and was built to punch through anything modern ships or submarines can throw at it. The Mark 48 is the largest, fastest, smartest thing the Navy can put underwater that wants to find a ship. The Corvette has decoys for cruise missiles, but nothing for this. The entire People's Liberation Army Navy is built on the premise that they'll never have to find out. From tube launch to impact at 8,000 yards is roughly 4 minutes of runtime. The Corvette has 0 of those minutes to react because it has no idea the torpedo would exist. The solution holds for 90 minutes, and the Corvette alters course twice during that window. Once to break contact with Malvar after the radio challenge, and again to set up her transit back toward Hainan. The Minnesota adjusts the firing in real time after each maneuver, and each course change tightens the bracket on the Corvette's predicted track. If you look here at the fire control display in the Minnesota's control room, those crossed lines are TMA, Target Motion Analysis, how a submarine targets something it almost never sees with its own eyes. Bearings come in, the boat watches how fast they change, and bearing rate plus time gives course and speed. Multiple legs cross-fix range. The crew locks it in and holds it as target maneuvers across the surface above. And the longer they hold it, the tighter the bracket gets. It's the difference between aiming at where the duck is and aiming at where the duck will be when the bullet gets there. Submariners do that math in their sleep, on a maneuvering target in 3 dimensions, without ever seeing the duck. At 90 minutes, the Virginia has held the firing solution longer than the entire encounter on the surface lasted from first contact to radar stow. Somewhere on the corvette's bridge, the captain who held a 40-second radar lock on the Malvar is feeling pretty good about how the patrol went. He's not checking the water beneath his keel because there's no instrument on his bridge that would tell him to. He's never going to know how close he came to becoming an artificial reef. At 10:10 local time, the Minnesota logs the engagement and opens distance to the east. Tube 2 drains and the outer door, which never opened, stays shut for the rest of the patrol. The radar lock said, "We could have shot you." The submarine that the corvette's crew never saw, never heard, and never will, said back, quietly, and for 90 minutes, you would have been on the bottom in 4. And the only thing your sonar would have heard was the splash. If you enjoyed this video, then watch this video on when a Chinese destroyer got too close to a US destroyer. Bye for now.